bass player was sitting on her bass, a rattling banjo in her hands. She was picking out a Skip James song she could only half remember the words to, though she nailed the humming, broken chorus every time. The music drained of hope, as if the man had seen these years coming, seen him and tried to tell us, but we did not understand. Do you know anything happier, the first mate said. Not today, the bass player said, but tomorrow, who knows? Then smiled at her own joke, and each of the other three musicians in different parts of the ship smiled with her. They had played together so long that they were always in contact with each other, and with the man they had lost. Slim Herkimer, Herkimer Slim, they never knew which way his name went, but they all remembered the first time they heard him play. A trumpet, a guitar, a cello, a piano with rotting keys. It did not matter what he touched. Each of them swore later that they could see the air ripple around him when he played, and everyone within earshot swooned, their voices curling back in their throats. All the doors opened, the walls peeled away, and the music swelled into the space until it overflowed and covered the world. They could hear it in distant deserts over the waves of the sea. When Slim finished, there was a full 4 seconds of silence. Then a sound came from the people who had heard him, a stuttering, rising moan as though he had given them a piece of light, a sharp spark that they held in their hands before it slipped through a seam in the sky. After the audience left and he was putting his instruments in their cases, each of the musicians asked him if they could play sometime, if he needed a band, if he could stand a drummer. Sure, he said, let's do it. His eyes pointed at him, but were almost unseeing. He hummed in the long pauses between his words, the notes still coming to him even when he could not express them. They became a 5-piece. Judge Spleen Smiley did most of the singing, but as soon as Slim started to play, nobody heard a word. He taught them all how to put their voices into their fingers, channel their souls through metal and wood. Before the war, they played at fairs and dances, on outdoor stages in searing sun, under sagging awnings in the rain, under the spread of stars. Even played at the West Side Ballroom once, though Elise was asleep that night, her child curled in her arms. They played late shows in raftered rooms, murky with the light from a single dim lamp. Each of them had good nights when they were the music's instrument, and they could feel the groove dig deeper, the people yell louder, dance and drink a little more. They could feel they were bringing everything together, but none of them could touch Slim. The best nights he played for hours, eyes closed, rocking back and forth, fingers moving as if they were independent animals. Those who saw him couldn't talk about it for a few days, then talked about nothing else. They traveled together on a wagon with a plastic sheet tented over the top, piled beneath it with all their instruments. 4 horses in front, pulling them through the country. When it rained, they found shelter for the horses, huddled together under blankets in the wagon and dropped them to sleep, one after the other, in feud. When it did not rain, they slept on the ground, never stopped marveling at the vastness of the sky, as if the music was opening their heads to everything, letting them step into a single moment, then stay and stay. They heard the war before they saw it, a long, tearing whine from the far side of the hill behind them. They turned and looked, saw a flash of light that Judge Spleen Smiley mistook for a meteorite, until there were too many for it to be natural. None of them slept, listening to the war dismember the town down the road. They had just played there, the bass player thought. There had been rumors, people going home early, more guns than usual. But at their show there was a woman with purple plastic earrings, in a white blouse, dancing close with her man, resting her head on his red shirt. 3 men trying to grow mustaches who drank too much but never got nasty about it. Sat on the bars, swinging their legs, hollering, "Come on, honey, you know I'm worth a try." 4 women ordered 18 shots at once to make sure they had enough for the night. The smallest of them put down 8 of them herself, insisted on getting up to sing. She was good. A husky alto, knew some old country, some old jazz, knew what the people in that room wanted and gave it to them. They cheered at the end and she curtsied, pretended she was wearing a skirt. They did not gig as much as they wanted to after that. Played cinder block social halls that survived the fires, field hospitals, weddings and funerals that both ended in breaking glass and blood in the dirt. A man passed out, face down in the road, one hand on a greasy pistol, the other on a glass bottle, the inside still shiny with a thin stripe of rancid alcohol. Baptisms frequented by right-haired grandparents, hobbling forward, stretching out their arms to hold their children and shaking hands. 2 weeks before he left, Herkimer Slim Herkimer, played the best they'd ever heard from him, in a former grocery store in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It did not start well. Broken light bulbs and snapped strings, a splinter in the top of his guitar, a wire that kept shorting. The people stayed to listen as if they sensed what was coming. A drop in air pressure, a change in the light. Someone coughed, scuffed his shoes, and Herkimer Slim closed his eyes. He did not open them again until dawn. His teeth glimmered between parted lips, fingers twisting and rushing, the notes in alien intervals showing you the way in, then throwing you heavenward, holding your head under the water and lifting you out again, exhilarated and gasping for oxygen. He was crying for the last hour, but the notes spoke of nothing but joy. Only 15 people heard him that night, but he changed the directions of their lives. Caused marriages, divorces, children to be conceived, raised better, raised the best they could be. He did not sleep at all the next day, then slept for 15 hours straight. At their next gig, it was as if the last one never happened. But as they were putting their instruments away, he gave one long last blow into a clarinet, a high cry that spoke of grief and rapture, and then disappeared. It was only later, when his band thought back on it, that it began to seem as though he'd known he'd have to go, had some music he needed to play before he left. They told each other that over and over again, the story they pieced together to make his loss bearable. They played the music they left him as well as they could, and to those who had never heard Herkimer Slim, Slim Herkimer, it was revelatory. "I love you guys," someone had told them once, "always hanging back even when you rush forward." They nodded to each other, for they all knew what they were doing, leaving room for him at the center of their sound, as if the last note he played was still going on somewhere, sustaining them through their lives, and if they hung back far enough, they could still hear it. Sometimes I think I can hear it too, and my daughter is singing along.